Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with everybody today. This is my first time doing something like this so large, so thank you for the invitation. And I'm here to talk about Loop. And Loop is a relatively new platform, but it's been in development for a couple of years. It's a big shift in terms of how we work with brands, how we work with retailers to move from a single use or linear supply chain to one that is circular. So it is a bit complex. I'm going to do my best to give a high level overview in 15 minutes, and then we should save some time at the end for questions. So I think the first thing that I would love to start with is that Loop is a TerraCycle company. I think it's important to set up that structure because it really puts into perspective why we're doing this and why we're doing it now. So for those of you who don't know, TerraCycle is a company that's almost 20 years old, and we are a mission-based company. And our mission is to eliminate the idea of waste. And what most people know us for is our recycling services. We have three pillars of our business now, two of which are recycling. And our first pillar is around taking products and packaging that would not be municipally recyclable and making it recyclable. Our second pillar of our business is around using post-consumer recycled material. So here in the US, you may know us for the work that we've done with Colgate around making playgrounds from recycled toothbrushes and toothpaste tubes. But most importantly, and I promise this leads into Loop, about 3 years ago, we launched a project with Procter & Gamble where we made Head & Shoulders bottles from ocean plastics. And we were invited to the World Economic Forum in 2017 to announce that project. And while there, our CEO participated in a lot of the sustainability talks. And the message at the World Economic Forum almost exclusively revolved around, in terms of sustainability and end of life, it revolved around how do we make things recyclable and how do we make things from recycled content. And you would think that's wonderful because those are the two things our business did at the time, and it was. But Tom started to challenge himself in the business, and we got to a point where we said, while it's incredibly important, it's not going to solve the issue for waste. And really that's where Loop was born. And what Loop is at its core is it's an engine for brands and for retailers, like I said earlier, to move into a circular, reusable supply chain. So fast forward to 2019, the World Economic Forum again in January, and we announced to the world that Loop was coming. From there, we actually went live with the platform in the northeast of the United States, as well as the greater Paris area in France in May of last year, of 2019. This year, we will be expanding to London in the UK, Toronto in Canada, the West Coast here in the United States, Germany, Tokyo, and then in 2021, we will be launching in Australia as well. So as we went about trying to push the boundaries and create a system of reuse, we took a lot of inspiration from the milkman. And for us, what was really fascinating about this model is that it wasn't sustainability that drove milk companies to create a bottle that was reusable. It was economics, right? If the milk bottle was an asset that was owned by the milk company, it only made sense to create an asset that could last many, many uses. But what happened was, we're coming out of World War II, we have tremendous advances in polymer science, and we have the birth of disposability. And this is an actual advertisement from a 1952 Time magazine. And what this advertisement is celebrating is the idea of convenience. And that was one of the big virtues of disposability. right? This ad, people are throwing up their dishes and their cutlery, and the ad said, why spend 27 minutes at the kitchen sink washing your dishes when you can use disposable ones and enjoy that time with your family? And I think the message rings true. Like, we live a very convenient lifestyle today, and disposability played a huge part of that. But what was important in disposability is the virtues were great, but it also invited and created the waste problem that we see today with single use. And one of the big reasons why is that in this model, packaging moved from being an asset that was owned by the brands to being a cost of good. And like any good business, over time, what's our goal is to reduce our cost of good. And the primary way that we've done that in packaging is through lightweighting. So this is an example of the beverage industry, but I think it holds true in a lot of industries. But lightweighting does have tremendous environmental benefits. I'm not here to debate that at all. But it has created a waste problem for one very good reason. As we lightweight products and as we create products from cheaper and more complicated material, we've actually reduced the recyclability of those products. Because, and if I put my TerraCycle and recycling hat on for a second, recyclers at the end of the day are, in my opinion, urban miners, right? We want to go through your blue bin, we create MRFs to extract materials of value to us, right? Why is aluminum and clear PET recyclable and a flexible pouch not? It has nothing to do with the technical ability to recycle aluminum or clear PET versus flexible plastics. It has everything to do with value. As a recycler, I can collect, aggregate, process that PET into a new format, usually a pellet or a flake, and I can sell that for more than the cost to get it into that format. So that's where we are today with packaging. Downward pricing pressure, lowering our costs has caused us to create cheaper packaging that otherwise would not be recyclable. But if we step outside of sustainability for a second and we think purely as consumers, I think what's also interesting about this example, and this is just the beverage industry. I know that there are a few people on this call today, so I'm going to make this a rhetorical question. But when I do pose this question to people, 9 out of 10 say that if they had a choice to drink their soda and they could choose between the 5 packaging types on this screen, most would choose the glass bottle, right? Because it feels like a more premium, enjoyable experience. We've had people in the beverage industry also tell us that their product tastes better in glass. And I think that's, for us, that was something that we wanted to build into Loop. How do we bring back joy? How do we bring back consumer delight through packaging? And as we've kind of built this platform and launched it last year, our real thesis statement here is, how do we respect the virtues that disposability brought, which are convenience and also affordable products, while removing the consequence, which is waste? And for us, without exception in the Loop platform today, it was going back to that idea of the milkman, and it was returning packaging to being an asset owned by the companies. And what we've seen is that when packaging is an asset, when our brand partners are forced to design into durability, it unlocks a few key features. And the first is reusability. It feels like an obvious one, but I always point it out because in terms of being reused, we as Loop need to be able to clean and sanitize all of this packaging to the levels that our brand partners demand and the government prescribes so that they can refill it again. And I always like to use like a shampoo bottle as a good example. A shampoo bottle is actually quite durable. There's a lot of material in there. It's pure HDPE. The reason why HDPE and other polyolefins don't work in loop is for us to be able to clean and sanitize that packaging, it needs to withstand high heat. And in loop, we're accessing materials like stainless steel and aluminum and actually lots of glass, but also plastics, but they're engineered plastics like polycarbonate, for instance. The second is design. I think that's a huge piece of loop. I'm incredibly biased, but I think this deodorant packaging is beautiful. And again, sustainability aside, I as a consumer am very attracted to this packaging. So our partners have really taken that to heart when creating their durable and reusable packages in loop. And then the last is new functionality. Where appropriate, where does this increase in cost to create packaging? How can that influence packaging that could delight the consumer and create a better experience? So over the next few slides, everyone, I'm just going to flip through quickly and show you some examples that we've created so far. I think for me, we've primarily worked with partners in the FMCG space. So today in Loop, we have a lot of partners in food, in beverage, in personal care, and home care. We're accessing like alloys. Stainless steels in particular are incredibly durable and have proven to withstand the rigors of the platform from a material standpoint and also be very cleanable. We have products as well where we're able to move it into a new format, but this is an example of Clorox disinfecting wipes. And with the current situation, you can imagine that this product is selling very well today. We also allow our consumers to collect those wipes and send them back to us as well, avoiding them going to landfill. I mentioned we also have a lot of glass. This is a unique example with Unilever. And what I love here is it's almost a double sustainability story. They've moved from a flexible tube into a durable glass container, and they also changed the format from a toothpaste to a waterless chewable tablet, which is a great story. I also do want to mention that while a lot of our initial partners were big international conglomerates that enabled us to grow and build the Loop platform, we have small independent brands as well. This is, 3 people in France creating a natural detergent, and this is being sold today on our platform. Retailers are bringing their private label products into Loop as well. I did mention earlier that we do have plastics. So this is Cascade automated dish pods. This is a 100% plastic container, number 2 selling product on the platform globally today. And even Nature's Path. This is also a polycarbonate. It is plastic. It is very durable. And throughout the whole process, what's important is that Nature's Path, an organic company, was able to keep their USDA certification through the Loop process. So I'm getting to the end of my time here. So I do want to end with one thing. Today, Loop is the retailer as well. Long term, though, that's not our goal, right? We envision our core competency in Loop to be a cleaning company, right? We want our brand partners to create the products that consumers know and love. We want to be able to clean them. So there was a big gap. So that's why in every market that we will launch, we will always partner with a traditional retailer who will eventually take on the sale of these Loop products and packaging. So we do have, a lot of partners around the world. Carrefour in France will be the first retailer to take on this direct sale of Loop products in the next month. Later this year, Kroger on the West Coast will also unveil their Loop product, their Loop platform. So if 2019, if I can summarize, if 2019 was about messaging and getting the Loop brand and platform out there on the minds of consumers, 2020 and 21 really is about implementing this idea of reusability into retailers and starting to get to scale, and expanding Loop from being a small e-commerce platform in select regions to embedding this into retailers, hopefully national supply chains, and bringing Loop and reusability to as many people as possible. So I'll pause there. I'm relatively on time. I hope that was informative. And Piers, if I'm correct,
that was great.
Should I hit the Q&A?
Yeah, so as I said, there's a Q&A at the bottom. And maybe just to start things off, I'll ask you a question, which is, it's very interesting to see the slide with the kind of post-war advertising. There's a moment in history right now which we're going to go through possibly the same sort of effect. We're going to go from a moment of austerity. What you thinking about on the in terms of your business opportunities and challenges on the other side of this crisis?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the first opportunity for us is when we think of pandemics, when we think of viruses, the idea that disposable packaging is sterile is quite a myth, right? And for us at Loop, our supply chain and the packaging that we're getting back is coming into our clean rooms that are all FDA food grade approved and being cleaned and sanitized to the levels that the government and our brands demand. So like what ISO certifications and ventilation do those rooms have? What's the microbial levels on that packaging? How many colony forming units? So I think that idea of cleaning is really going to position us well moving forward. And the fact that we can take these packages back, clean them, and a key point in Loop, and one that may be on people's minds, is that Loop is a platform that's trying to mimic single use. So when we talk about refillability, the refilling is always done by our brand partners, never by the consumer, either at home or in a retail environment. And that notion and that kind of base of our platform allows us to really provide a food grade and safe product while being very environmentally friendly.
Thanks, Tony. There's a number of questions turning up in Q&A. Do you want to have a look?
Absolutely. So we'll go first with what are some of the ways you guys are thinking about how to train consumer behavior away from disposability? I think it's a really great question. And I'm gonna skip ahead here. I think it's a big task, right? Anytime you change consumer behavior, you have a mountain to climb. That said, early results have been incredibly positive. And I think because, one, the times that we live in is very important. If we tried to launch Loop 3 years ago, 5 years ago, I don't think we would have had success. What we're seeing in our consumer insights today is that consumers want to do the right thing generally, and they're frustrated with recycling. So the idea of reuse is simple to understand. So that's the base that we're starting off of. And then we want to make the platform easy to use. So that's why there will be several iterations of Loop. It will be available via e-commerce. We're even going to be launching this year models where Loop products will be on shelf in your grocery store. So we want to create a platform that replicates the existing single-use platform while removing the waste. So I hope there's a lot of questions now. I'm going to go one by one here. Are we willing to work with e-commerce only retailers? And if so, what is the process? We would love to know who to contact as well. I think for us, we want to work with many different retailers, whether it's e-commerce, traditional brick and mortar, grocery, specialty, pet. I think we're in a period now where we're exploring our avenues, and we want to have conversations with anybody interested. the best person to contact is me, and I promise that I'll share my contact details with everybody as well. So moving ahead, do we have any partners or brands in the apparel industry for retail bags or apparel packaging? Not yet. I would say this has been a huge shift for us internally. And to be very honest, we started where we had decade-long relationships. P&G and Unilever and Nestle and Clorox. Loop was a bit of a crazy idea when we started pitching it to them, but the fact that we had a history working in their space, there was a level of trust there, and that's why we started there. I think as we look at 2020, probably the second half and beginning of 2021, we want to expand Loop to beyond just filling products and packaging, but also look at B2B models, look at the apparel industry, look at even products as well. For us, children's clothing or children's sporting equipment that they size out of very quickly feels like low-hanging fruit, but it's probably something that we're going to look at a little later on in the year. But again, I'm a great point of contact, and should you have an idea or want to start brainstorming now, I'm always available to chat. What does the end consumer pay, and is it a recurring revenue model? So the end consumer, when they pay for products in Loop, they're paying two prices. The first is for the product itself. So I'll use an example of shampoo. Today in Loop, you will buy a bottle of Pantene and it's $4.99 for the shampoo. Then the consumer will pay a 100% refundable deposit to securitize the bottle itself, right? Because at the end of the day, that bottle is an asset owned by, in this case, P&G. When the consumer sends back that bottle, they can either roll that deposit into their next order of Pantene and have it on an automatic replenishment where the deposit would remain and they would continually pay the $4.99 for the shampoo. Or if they said, I'm going to shave my head, or I've been stressed out like Tony and now I'm very bald and I don't need shampoo, I want that deposit back. What is the process and logistics of getting the product and packaging back? So today in the Loop model, it is via our tote bag. So you can see a drawing of it here. We have a durable, reusable tote bag in Loop. And what we envision is that that tote bag replaces your garbage bin, your recycling bin. So as products are emptied, you put them back into the bin. When people are ordering or have a new order, they can simply give the old tote back to the UPS driver in this case, or they can schedule a pickup or take it to a UPS facility to be sent back. As we progress, what's exciting is that we're going to have public drop-off points. So we're partnered with fast food companies coming in the future. We're going to be partnered with retailers, and you will be able to drop off your Loop products in bins at those designated areas, and it will all be managed through an app, which we'll be launching in a couple months. And then I'm just picking one here. I'm familiar with Loop. Congrats on the business model. I do wonder, what is the argument in favor of Loop when compared to new players like Blueland, when comparing side by side in the context of a cleaning product? One ships capsules that are dropped. Okay, so I'm familiar. We're talking about like a concentrated pod that would go into an existing bottle, and then you can add water or some other types of reusable models. So for us, those are great. I think at the end of the day, one, we're not claiming to have invented reuse, and we hope that there are going to be many reusable models, because there's not one silver bullet that's going to get us out of this waste problem that we've created for ourselves. What I would say is a differentiator for Loop is that we're trying very hard to make this convenient for the consumer. And what we've seen is that convenience is trying to replicate the existing model today. So with Loop products, you buy the products, you use them, you send it back, you buy a new one. There's no issues around refilling yourself. And what we've seen, especially working with brands around the world, is health and safety is still incredibly important. When we look at reuse at home with consumers, if we're talking about products like shampoo that are going to live in your bathroom, they are incredibly susceptible to mold and other kind of variants. So with Loop, we're guaranteeing that we're going to clean that packaging that came from your bathroom that could have contained mold, and it's going to be sent back to the partner, and it's going to go through their checks and balances as well, and it's going to be refilled and go back to the client, and it's going to be very, very safe. And then we're also talking about the performance as well. Like 40% of Americans, when they buy hand soap, put it into another container. I've done that for many years. I'm sure a lot of us have faced the problem where over time that nozzle gunks up and it doesn't work anymore, right? So in Loop, we're trying to remove a lot of those nuances through the model where the consumer's continually buying new things, and we as Loop and the brands are making sure that it's clean and it performs the way it needs to perform. Those are my details. I'm very accessible. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I appreciate the ones that you asked. They were very pertinent. And the one thing that I would say is we're still new. We're still learning, but we've already had 8 months of learning, and we're already making really great improvements based on the feedback from people using this platform. So I hope we continue to improve, continue to add more products, and bring it to markets around the United States and around the world.